Hello, my name is Joshua Inman. I grew up right outside of Seattle, Washington, in a town called Port Orchard. I grew up in a Christian family. I was raised primarily in a Vineyard Christian Fellowship in right outside of Seattle, and so I got to experience some amazing works of God and moves of God at an early age. So I always knew that God was real. I never had to question that, and I always knew that homosexuality was wrong. When I went into, I was more effeminate than most guys, and so when I was most of the kids that were my age that my parents had friends with were girls, so I did a lot of dressing up in dresses and playing with dolls, and I was pretty effeminate. So when I got to elementary school, everyone thought I was a girl, and they would call me a girl, and they wouldn't believe me when I said I wasn't. In fact, at one point, I took some guys or some of the bullies into the bathroom and I exposed myself to prove to them that I was not a girl, but it did little good. And by the time I got to junior high school, everyone started calling me a fag and a queer and changing my name from Joshua to Josephine and all kinds of. I went through hell, 3 years of hell in junior high, and I know most of us can relate to that, if not all of us. Junior high is a really hard time. It was my 3 years of hell. In fact, I twice in my 3 years there, rumors were spread about me that I had gotten an erection in the boys' locker room. And in fact, in my seventh grade yearbook, I have two messages about that. Fun times. But where was I going with this? Okay, so despite all that, God's presence was so real to me. He was so real, despite the horrific things I went through. And it was junior high that I also started seeing my same sex attractions emerge. And I didn't really talk to anybody about it because I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know what to do about it. I stuffed those feelings and thoughts, hoping that they would disappear, but they really didn't. They just got stronger. And I made it through high school. And by the time, right after high school, I joined Youth with a Mission and I went to the Philippines for 5 years. And I'd done Youth with a Mission's King's Kids program in our town growing up. And so after high school, I went back to the Philippines where I'd done a King's Kids outreach and did some studying. And I was there for 5 years and struggling, didn't know what to do, just hoping that someday God would take these feelings away. And I realized, or I found a pamphlet while I was in the Philippines about Exodus, and I'd never heard of it. I didn't know there was such a thing as ex-gay ministry or ministry for people struggling with same-sex attraction or any of that. So I wrote them, and they started sending me their newsletter, and I saw so much of myself in these stories that's when I finally came to terms and finally admitted, okay, this is what I struggle with. Before, I didn't have the strength to say that. I didn't want to say that, but I finally came to that realization and I came to terms with it and finally made peace with that. And as I started looking at books, I found that there was such a thing as a live-in program, which I'd never heard of before. So I moved from the Philippines down to the San Francisco Bay Area, and I got involved with Frank Worthen's New Hope Ministries live-in program, and I was there for about 2.5 years, and that was extremely beneficial for me. And then following leaving that, I got touring in the music business. I've been selling merchandise for 20 years, almost 20 years. Um, uh, with different Christian and country artists and women of faith in different conferences. And God's just really been working on me the last 20 plus years and untangling the lies and uprooting the lies that Satan has fed me all these years that I didn't really realize were lies, and untangling things. And it's been a really great process. It's hard because it's slow and it's not as fast as I would like to see, but God's been very faithful to me, and I haven't always been willing to allow Him to come in and bring change or to face things or deal with things, but He's been so faithful and patient with me. And I just want to encourage you to keep seeking God because, man, it just gets better and better. And this road gets easier the more you're on it and the longer you're on it. So don't give up. I'm in the process right now of writing a book about my experiences, my life, and the lessons God has taught me. And I'm so excited about it. I can't wait to share it. And I just want you guys to be encouraged. And I'm